Stop pre-ordering multiplayer games, single player games, any type of game. This is one of the worst practices that has really evolved into something that at first was a good intention, giving bonus content to users, just extra missions, extra maps, extra characters, etc., etc. The list went on about a decade ago, but now it has become one of the just worst things that the gaming industry has experienced. What's going on, everybody? Cryptix, and I just really wanted to talk about this and to discourage people, really, in a way, to not pre-order any game that you see coming out, that you see potentially being worked on, that you see a trailer for, and your hype is built up. It's a really bad thing, and I'm going to nail a couple of things right out the get-go. And at the end of the day, you should just wait and see for a game to really come out, have a successful launch on day one, and then think about purchasing the game. So one of the most prevalent and recent events that we've, endured as gamers is the atrocity of Battlefield 2042. Now, about a decade ago, maybe you can even argue about 7 years ago, Battlefield was a respectable franchise that gave you bonus content for pre-ordering the game. Now, you could blame the pandemic and things like that, but at the end of the day, the game Battlefield 2042 should not have been released the way in the state that it was in about 6 to 8 months ago, and at the end of the day, it was a trash product. Now, the pre-order bonuses for Battlefield 2042, I'll just throw them on the screen, but they're essentially like cosmetic items, certain things that you would have to earn in the game, etc., etc. So people were incentivized, from the hype of this game, the trailers, the look of it, the gameplay blogs, the roadmap, things like that. People were incentivized to pre-order this game because of that. But it caused the executives, as well as the developers, to essentially make an unfinished product because they saw all of the money coming in for pre-order. And mind you, pre-order back in the day was like $5 down and you were guaranteed the content, and then you'd spend the rest of the money when the game came out on day one. But these days, you basically have to spend $60 to $70 plus tax USD to actually, pre-order the game fully, and there's no $5 down or things like that. So, the executives, the devs, whoever it was, were seeing pre-order sales skyrocket for a game like Battlefield 2042, and essentially got lazy because they saw all of the, dollar signs coming in. Executives are probably, trying to rush the game out on top of that. But at the end of the day, pre-ordering the game really did hinder the user because they were basically locked into a game like Battlefield 2042, and they got trash on day one. And even now, the game is still not in a great state. There are more people playing previous Battlefield games, and I'm sure you've seen a ton of videos about it, compared to Battlefield 2042, right? It's a really just, again, bad practice. The executives probably were pleased by the numbers, wanted to get the game out on, the end of quarter Q4 for Q4 bonuses, sales, things like that. And essentially everybody has stopped playing this game who pre-ordered it, and on top of that, you wasted $60 to $70. I myself actually wanted to wait to see if the game was going to live up to the hype. I didn't pre-order a Battlefield game for once. I pre-ordered a bunch of them in the past, 8 to 10 years. And at the end of the day, I am glad that I did not pre-order a game like that, right? The pre-order bonuses are not going to incentivize me to lock in $70 as a consumer to be purchasing an unfinished product. And we've seen this pattern happen time and time and time again, right? At the end of it all, you can look at games like even Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk took about 8 to 10 months to actually get in a playable state. Now you can get the game for, I believe, cheaper than $70. And, they did have current and next gen in one package for whatever, the $60 to $70 price tag. But I myself, once again, as a consumer, am not going to pay $70 up front for a pre-order for maybe a couple of cosmetic items and maybe a weapon and things like that to experience atrocities and glitches and just unplayable games and gameplay, such as, again, Cyberpunk, for 8 to 10 months before the game is in somewhat of a playable state. Mind you, it's still dealing with bugs, glitches, things like that the devs are trying to develop a roadmap for. Once again, these are two very well-known games, hyped up games between E3 trailers, between bonus content, between blogs, roadmaps, things like that. We are tired as a consumer to be purchasing these games when they are clearly just bottled down to an unfinished, just destroyed experience, essentially, and something that we weren't expecting to experience on a day one release of any of these hyped up games or franchises that I've mentioned before. We've also have a bunch of games coming out in the future, right? We have a bunch of games coming out for PlayStation exclusives, Xbox, etc. I'm just going to pick a couple off the top of my head that I'm going to refrain from before, I decide to either purchase the game. I'm not pre-ordering these games because it just creates less of an incentive to create a great product for a day one release. A couple of these that came off the top of my head are PlayStation exclusives, but you can just think of another game that you're hyped for in the next couple of years, right? So the first one is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, the remastered remake version. And I am a fan of the old Star Wars games 20 years ago, right? Those were essentially, it was the hype train of Star Wars games. We were getting Star Wars games every couple years. This is a remake of a game that came out back in 03, 04. And essentially, I'm going to wait. I'm not going to pre-order the game no matter how much bonus content, characters they give me, unless it's something so absurd that it's just so hard to turn down. But even then, I would be skeptical, right? Because again, this is a remake. This is from a different company trying to take on the project. I'm just a little, I'm just a little skeptical, and I don't know if the game's going to have bugs, glitches, become an unplayable product for 8 to 10 months. I'm refraining from that. Same thing goes for even a game like Spider-Man 2, that, the first iteration, Spider-Man 1 was an insane product, and, I think the developers for, Insomniac that created this game are going to do a good job for Spider-Man 2, but even then, from all the things that I've experienced from games in the past few years, I want a great product on day one like a majority of you. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, the first game was great. I'm just going to pre-order the second game because the first game was good. If you follow that precedent and that practice, you are, bound to waste $70 somewhere, right? Games were not made not made these days like they were, a decade ago. You had to have a great game on day one because, the internet patches and things like that. You can basically patch a game up as time goes on now, and I don't want to have to deal with that again. So even with Spider-Man 2 and Insomniac having a great product, a great game for the first one, I'm not even going to pre-order the second one, okay? And I know it's going to be, at least, at a certain extent, I think it's going to be a great game. But again, I don't want to waste $70 if the game has a glitch that's game-breaking on the first week. I'd rather wait to see if the developers can fix it. Now, another one is even like Wolverine, which is going to be a PlayStation exclusive, I believe, because, Sony is basically trying to get all the superheroes essentially on their side. They already got Spider-Man locked in. That's a Spider-Man, Sony product, right? That is a Sony exclusive. But even Wolverine, I believe, is going to be a PlayStation exclusive, and I'm skeptical of that because, again, that is a game that doesn't have really anything to go off of, and people are hyping it up. There's a trailer, things like that. I'm going to hold back before I, spend $60 to $70. No matter if they give me the classic suit as a bonus, thing, I want to make sure the game plays well. I think you guys get the point here. I don't want to really repeat myself, but you guys really should take a step back, see the games that you've purchased in the past 4 or 5 years or pre-ordered, let's say, and how many of them were great successes? How many of them do you still play here and there today, right? Are most of these games that you've pre-ordered a failure, a flop, or are most of these games successful products on day one? I would love to see your thoughts and your comments down below. But as for me, I've really just experienced this time and time again, and I'm done, locking in a good amount of money in today's society, right? Everyone's struggling to even, save, a few bucks, let alone spending $70 on a game. It's just the way I see it and the way I've seen the gaming industry really change pre-order, bonus content It started off as a good thing, but now it has evolved into a less incentivized tactic for developers and executives to basically, say screw the consumer when day one games come out, So hope you all did enjoy. Drop a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. I'm Cryptix, and definitely not pre-ordering any of the games that I've mentioned or pre-ordering games that I didn't mention, and signing off.